New Thought Media Network proudly presents the Science of Mind Saturday Conversations. Learn more about the Science of Mind philosophy, faith, and way of life. Join our team of experts for a weekly deep dive discussion. Come study the science of mind, chapter by chapter, and resources from the Science of Mind archives. Plan to join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, only on the New Thought Media Network.
Good morning, and welcome to the Science of Mind conversation. We're so glad you're here today, and it is my pleasure to be here once again to talk about something that is of great importance, and that is chapter 18 of the Science of Mind textbooks, The Law of Attraction. And so we are looking forward to this conversation. If you're out there, please drop a comment in. I really am excited about today, and I hope you are as well. So please join in, put your comments in, uh, put your thoughts in, your questions in. This is the time for us to engage, and we are looking for the opportunity to really dive deep into this conversation as we are looking for it to really open up into a world that is responsive, that is open to who and what we are, and to realize that this topic, the law of attraction, becoming the equivalent of the life we seek, is how we are actually traveling through space, if you will. And so, if it feels comfortable, as we get started, let's close our eyes or lower our gaze just to center who and what we are. And so we call forth right now the intelligence of the universe to channel through each and every one of us, to open our eyes, to open our minds, to allow us to be truly who we are, what God has created us to be, that infinite intelligence that is always operating on our behalf, that allows us to still the noise, to still the movement, and to step into a place where we are the law of attraction in action. And so we know that this is present right here, right now. And so we just release, relax, and let go and know that it is absolutely so. And so it is. Amen. And so it is. Amen. And so good morning, Linda. We're glad that you are here. We want to just reach out and say yes to all things. And so thanks for being here. And so as we get started, I would love for I would love for anyone to just post what they think the law of attraction is. What is this thing called the law of attraction? And how does it work? Well, first, let's just start with what it is. That's a good place to start. What is the law of attraction? Anybody want to take a gander? Good morning, Shay. How are you? Glad you're here with us this morning. Any takers on what the law is or what the law of attraction is? So let's just dive in then. Let me let me find my scene here and say attraction. The law of attraction, as we look at it today, we're going to explore what it is. And the first and foremost thing, it is not a slogan, right? We see today in popular culture that it comes across as a slogan and it's put out there, but it is an actual spiritual law. In popular culture, the law of attraction is often reduced to this idea of think it and get it, right? We see that this idea has permeated popular culture, and it's often used in a new term now called manifestation. And so, what we want to understand is that from the perspective of Ernest Holmes and religious science, that the law of attraction is more disciplined, more metaphysical, and more transformative than some of the popular ways that it is being put out today. And so, as we continue to try and find our way in this world that is, I don't know, that is, you know, more performative, or more aligned to a movie, right? And we understand that because we know thought is creative and ideas are created, but I think now it's more about look at me or those type of things instead of how are we performing in spirituality? How are we moving forward to reduce this idea of this life is about things as opposed to this life is about being. And being means being in service, being attuned, being in alignment. And so that's what we are hoping to cover here today. We think that we are in a space to do that. And so I just need to find one thing here. If you give me 1 minute, they have this new version, and it's quite elusive and from what it used to be. And I want to make sure that we are very clear on what we're doing. So I want to add this right now and say this, that as we look at the law of attraction, one statement right at the very beginning of the book. At the very beginning of the Science of Mind textbook, we see that Ernest says, we look forward to the day when science and religion walk hand in hand from the visible into the invisible. Why? One might ask, why is that important? Why are we looking at that in this light? And I think the key part of it is this. The key part is this, is that we live in a reality that is balanced from seen to unseen, from things known to those unknown, to an action to a reaction, right? There's a balance in the universe, as they say in Star Wars. There's a balance, there's a force, there's a balance in the force. And we are here to exemplify that, right? To modify that, to uphold that, to be that. And so when that happens, we move into a place that allows us to be creative or producive or productive. I think, sometimes even the word creative can get to be a little miscued when we think about this idea of what is this law called attraction. What is this law called attraction? And so I think even today, when we think about what Ernest Holmes said, this moving from visible to invisible, when spirituality and religion and science walk hand in hand, I think we capture that very succinctly when we think about what Ernest Holmes said. And let me know if you're seeing this slide. I hope you are. And it says that everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Now, this is from a statement from Ernest Holmes. And now we have this pivotal statement, actually the first sentence in the Science of Mind textbook, this walking from with spirituality and religion walking hand in hand. And quantum physics has taken this metaphor, if you will, this mystical idea, and brought it to life. So now science and religion and spirituality are walking hand in hand because quantum physics has taught us that everything is energy, including thoughts, emotions. It states that reality is simply not some fixed thing that we can't touch, or that is separate from us, right? And that when we create a dominant frequency, we attract a similar experience. We attract a similar experience. And so that is a scientific equivalent to Ernest Holmes's mental equivalent, if you will, and how we operate in this space. Now, I would like to ask, is there anyone that really disagrees with this? Now, because in a lot of ways, sometimes this has gotten put into a place to be abusive, where people have things happen in their life, and they ask, well, what are you thinking? What is your consciousness? And that's not the case. That's not the case. That's not what we're looking at here. What we're looking at here is, how do we use the law? How do we use the law? Now, when we think about it, we know law very succinctly when we think about the law of gravity, the law of aerodynamics, the law of thermodynamics. We understand these as laws that are always present. And so when we think about this law of attraction, we need to understand what it is so we can begin to engage it, so that we can begin to operate within it. And so to do that, we need to understand what it is. We need to understand what it is. And so here we go. What is the law of attraction? Ernest Holmes teaches that the law of attraction is it's not some magical force, or some people think it's just magic, right? But Ernest Holmes teaches that the law of attraction is not a magical thing or some mystical force, but the natural action of a creative law that responds to our thought or responds to energy. Responds to thought and responds to energy equivalent, because we know everything is energy. So that's emotions and feelings and ideas. These are the things that the law of attraction works with and works on. Now, one way that Ernest talked about it early on in his book, he says, this is this idea of mind in action, the automatic, impersonal, and dependable response to the creative energy or the creative thought that we impress upon this internal, this eternal rather mind, the creative medium, as it's sometimes called. We have the science of mind symbol, seed, soil, thought, or seed, soil, plant. And that's what we're looking at, that creative medium that we impress upon to make things happen. To make things happen. And so that is where we are. What is this law? That's what it is. That is what the law is. Quantum physics now provides a great parallel to what this means, right? We know from quantum physics, we have this idea of the observer effect, right? They talk about the wave and the particle duality, and that the observer effect shows that what we're looking at or what we're paying attention to or what we are observing has an effect and an influence, if you will, or a correspondence more than an influence of what actually shows up in reality. And here's the key part. That law does not create, it produces. It produces, because the creative mind of the universe, God, Spirit, has already created all things and the infinite possibility. And what we do is we use laws to produce an outcome, to produce something that is tangible, to produce something that we see and can actually move forward with. So now that we kind of got a basics for what this law is, the next thing is this. The next thing is this. It is what is taking place when we think, because everything begins in consciousness. So the question is not simply, what do I want? The deeper question is, what are we becoming inwardly, making ourselves available to receive? So we know that this correspondence, this law of correspondence, has a mental equivalent, and that we have to keep ourselves in line with each other. We have to make things, or we don't make them. We expose that the universe is a mirror, and that this law of attraction is not magic. It is not a superstition. It is not about manifesting the universe. It is about understanding that consciousness has creative or productive reactions. Holmes' most important teaching, I think, is that this spiritual law, like all spiritual laws, is impersonal. It does not punish, it does not reward, it does not argue or judge or discriminate. It simply responds like a seed responds to the soil. When a seed is put in the soil is not creating anything, or the seed is not creating anything. It is responding to a law, a equivalence of when these two things come together and something is produced. And that is what we are to take in terms of a metaphor of how we can act in life, how we can produce things in our lives, whether it's happiness or a job, or to get over a fear, or many different things. And so this idea of a thought or a word or image or a creative process of what we are looking for, i.e. visualization, creates the mold for what happens, for what responds. Because this law reflects what is impressed upon it, right? It does not initiate, it responds. It did not decide on whether it's worth it or not. It just mirrors back to you what happens, what you put into it. It reflects right back to you. And so Now think we have a working model of this law of attraction. We have a working model that says we know what the law is. It's a spiritual law that we can impress upon, that responds to our idea or emotions or feeling, which are energy. It's impersonal. I can do it. You can do it. Anyone can do it, either consciously or unconsciously, because the law is impersonal. And it's not looking, as we said, to punish or to reward or any of those kind of things. It's looking for what it is being asked to respond to, and that's what it does. And that's what it does. And so the thing that we want to look at is, how does this work specifically? How does it work? You can't persuade this law. That's the thing. That's the key thing to remember. You can't persuade the law. You have to align with the law. I can have the best soil and the best plants, or seeds rather, and if they're not in alignment, nothing's happening. Nothing's going to happen. There's not going to be this tomato plant in 30 days or whatever the case might be. That's not going to happen. There has to be an alignment. There has to be an alignment. And when that takes place, then things are happening. Then things are happening. And so this is why you often, I shouldn't say often, you probably should hear it always, that spiritual practice matters. Spiritual practice matters. So this idea of prayer and meditation and affirmations and visualizing and journaling and all these things are a practice to attune our energy. It's not some attempt to coerce God into doing anything. These are ways of convincing our consciousness or activating our consciousness of the truth that's already available. The truth of the seed and the truth of the soil are already available. So we're not trying to convince anything to happen. We're trying to put them in alignment so that the truth of each item in this pair, if you will, are activated. So if anyone has any questions at this point or anything, please bring it forward, and I will try and give some insight on anything that I've said that may not be clear up until this point. I hope and trust that everyone is leaning into these ideas, because now more than ever, we need to understand that we have to produce the world that we want. We have to do that. We have to be active participants in this thing called life. And so the key to utilizing this, I think, is very succinct, right? And this is how it works, right? This is how it works. So, spirit, conscious mind, is the chooser. It is the thing that sets everything in motion. It chooses. And when we allow it to do what it do, as they say, the one thing that we are intending, the one thing that we put our intention on, creates the form. Then the law, the creative medium, becomes the doer, becomes the automatic, fateful process of doing its thing. We don't have to tell gravity to hold the house down. It does it. It's an automatic doer. And when that happens, we manifest, or we have the results of the experience that corresponds to that mental equivalent. Now, that takes some work on our part, as we said. We're not trying to convince God. We're not trying to do any of that. We are just working with this law. Now that we got that, how do we utilize it? How do we utilize uh, this gift, if you will, from the divine? This gift from the divine. So we need to understand the levels of attraction and effect, or the difference, right? Because an affect is a verb, is action, to produce an effect upon, whereas effect is a noun, a changing resulting from an action, right? So I think sometimes we're not clear about what this means, right? We want to be an affect. When we step into the creative process, when we step into utilizing the law of attracting, we are a verb, if you will. We are in the process of producing an effect upon the image, the idea, the mental equivalent that I'm working with. Not the results of me trying to change as the result of anything, a problem, an idea, or anything. We are looking to do the embodiment of that thing, right? That's what this really means. To be an action, to be a movement in this process, we must become the embodiment of the thing. Because Ernest said that thought can attract to us that which we first mentally embodies. What we embody, which means it's not some flighty concept, it's not some fleeting moment. We don't attract merely what we want, we attract what we embody. This is affect and not effect, right? And since we have this subjective set of tendencies, this subjective set of things to work with, we have the ability to create this uh, reaction, this production of what life is, and how we use this law of attraction to create the world that works for all. Now, once we have that, now we get opportunity to put it in action. Once we do this, we can put this stuff in action. And so we understand now a little better, I hope, that attraction is not wishful thinking, nor is it about objects or things. It's about consciousness. It's about consciousness. And Holmes states that the law is not based on a passive desire. To activate this law requires intention, emotion, and action. Intention, emotion, and action. Thus, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, expectations, imagination, the inner acceptance of all these things is what begins to be reflected or attracted or create the mental equivalent of what we're looking to establish in our lives. So the formula, if you will, becomes, these practices, prayers, meditation, causes an alignment within our consciousness. Then we show gratitude for just everything, because that opens up the receptivity. It opens up the means of alignment. And then once that happens, this action just gives us body. It takes on a physical thing. So if we look at this idea here on this thing, on this slide, the contemplation of the mind on the world around us, that's the thought. And that can create wanted and unwanted thoughts, right? And then once we focus on or hold in consciousness, not to make it happen, but to just keep the idea in front of us, the physical sensation we receive based on that idea creates in our mind an image. And that causes emotions. And that's the state of a mind or awareness that we feel. We actually feel it in our body. So the relationship between feelings and emotions, we first have a feeling and then we attach emotion to it. Everybody, if we're standing in the rain and everybody's being rained on, that's a feeling. But the emotion that we get from that, there are some people who are just in awe because they are loving the connection of the rain and everything on their body. There are others that are not so happy with that rain, messing up their clothes, messing up their hair, whatever it might be. But so we've gone from a thought to a feeling to an emotion, and that begins to even give more energy for this law of attraction to take place. And when that does, something manifests. It's the result of the culmination of the affects of our thoughts. It's the culmination of that. And so we have to be great stewards of our thoughts, of our actions, of our ideas, because they produce results. They produce results. And so I'm hoping that each and every one of us, I don't know, I'm hoping that we are beginning to see life more fully, that we are beginning to see life less as a thing that's happening to us and more of a thing that we are active participants in, that we are working on this together, that we are creating and attracting or producing the world we live in, and we're training ourselves now. We're getting deeper into these teachings to not just have a mental concept of it or philosophical idea of it. We're looking to create actions, things, right? One of Ernest's key points was this teaching is a teaching about manifestations, about results, about demonstration. And so when we can think of it in that way, I love this idea from Walt Disney that says the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Quit talking and begin doing, because that is what it takes. I can have the best idea of a house or a new invention, but if I don't begin to do something, nothing's going to happen. No house, no car, no new application, no none of that, right? So the law reflects what we're doing. So the law does not argue, as we said before. It does not punish, it responds. That's key. If you don't remember anything from this talk, this is key. That the law reflects, doesn't argue, doesn't try to convince you, it's not going to punish you, it's not doing any, it's not arbitrary. It responds to us. It responds to us. You know, as we said, in quantum physics, we have this idea, not even an idea, an actuality, excuse me, that a light beam could be either a wave or a particle. And once we observe it, once we put an idea to it, a thought to it, it collapses. It collapses into a thing that's manifest. That's manifest. And so I think once we feel this, once we're in tune with this, I think we have a better chance of moving forward in life with ease and grace. And so the next thing that we need to really embody and think about is, how do we want to step into the future? Lao Tzu said this. The ancient Chinese philosopher said, watch your thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. This is stepping into the future. Right now, what we're thinking and the words we're using and how we're acting is creating our future. It's creating our future. And so we must be clear about what we want, how we're responding to the universe. Because when we look at this in a practical application way, Holmes was great on using metaphors of gardening or farming because they're so explicit and so clear. And so if you take two farmers and one plants corn and one plants something else, tomatoes or thistles or weeds, the soil does not judge. It grows whatever you plant. It doesn't say, well, no, we don't need any more weeds or thistles or any. We're not going to allow the law to take effect. The law is taking effect every day, every time. And so we must be clear and understand this metaphor. So as we move forward and we're about to close, I want you to do this little exercise this week. The first thing is name 3 things you are grateful for. Name 3 things you are grateful for. This shifts your emotional frequency. This shifts your emotional frequency. And then once you find those things, feel that gratitude in your body. Feel it in your body. Create this coherence that begins to create this mirror effect, if you will. This quantum effect where we begin to take it from the wave of possibilities to a particle of a actual occurrence. So by feeling this gratitude in your body, you create this coherence. And then be clear or clarify the idea that you're working with here, because that's going to pick it out of that wave. What quality do you want to experience when you're having this gratitude moment and trying to create this manifestation in your life? What do you want to experience? Then you set that mental equivalent. You go to work. You begin to become that thing. You begin to act in a way that's in alignment with that, and then the universe responds. That wave collapses into that thing because now you are embodying it. You're thinking about it. You're acting in response in a way that is coherent with it. Like the seed and the soil, when they come together, there's a coherency there, and the production starts. And the first week when the plant sprouts, it doesn't have tomatoes, but give it a little time. It will have tomatoes. And remember, the idea or the thing that you are planting has different growing times. It takes a different time for a tomato to grow than a cucumber, than a watermelon. So be aware that if I stay in tune with the process, it will come in due time. So I just need to hold my gratitude, to hold the vision and to move in that results. And then I just step back and let the universe respond. Release this idea to the law. And once that happens, we are in a place that allows us to really, really, really understand. And as Linda says here, it can be quite frustrating when the manifestation doesn't show up in the form or the time of your desires. It can be. But one thing Ernest taught was I don't put the plant in the ground or the seed in the ground today and then put the seed in and it's not sprouting and go back and dig it up to see what's there. It has a time, it has a movement of how it works, and we have to begin to align ourselves to that. We align ourselves to that. And as we, there's the saying here in Colorado, you don't plant until after Mother's Day, right? So someone has engaged this process and they understand that the weather could change. Uh, and so you wait. Or if you got a greenhouse, now you can do some other things. But the law is still working and it can be frustrating. That is why we practice. And we begin to feel the tendencies within ourselves that are in alignment or not. And we practice and we practice. And so that becomes the overwhelming idea that Ernest tries to capture in this 18th chapter of the law of attraction. So I would advise everybody to go read that. I didn't want to. I wanted to give a concept that you can now go and read that chapter again and begin to put these in place. Begin to put this idea, these concepts, these little nuggets into place because they matter. They matter. And so the 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 overwhelming thing I think is this: we are active participants in this thing called life. It is not happening by chance. There is a law here. There is a productive thing that's working, and I'm fully aware that as Shay said here, there's some abusive things going on sometime when we try to explain this idea of the law of attraction or show off, as some people say. But you can't fool the law. You can't climb on top of your house and jump off and try to fool gravity that it doesn't exist. Or as Ernest said, from the visible to the invisible. We've never seen gravity. We've only seen the effects of gravity, but no one questions it. No one's climbing on buildings and jumping. It's the same with these spiritual laws, this law of attraction, this law of manifestation, this law of correspondence. These things are not seen, but they are in effect. So the more we align ourselves with them, the more we feel the presence of them in our life and see the results in our lives, we begin to feel this law of attraction and we see things manifesting in our lives. And so I would just like to end, if no one has any questions or final comments, I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a new way of looking at this law, a new way of acting. And I'd like to close with this affirmation. I think it's powerful. I think it's timely. And I think it's something we need now. And so as we begin to really step into this idea, we want to close with this. I give thanks for the good already present. I give thanks for the good now unfolding. I release fear, lack, and contradiction. I embody peace, abundance, wisdom, love, and right action. My consciousness is open to the divine possibility. The law responds to the truth I accept, and so it is. Amen. And so it is. Amen. And so I'm hoping that we can move forward today into next week, into the rest of our lives, understanding and practicing and moving forward with this idea on the law of attraction, because it will save us, it will guide us, it will allow us to open up and embody who we truly came here to be. And that is emanations of the Most High God, that we are creative forces in the universe because we know what alignment is, we know what affect is, and we know what coherence and love and peace and oneness really looks like when it is activated in all that we do. And so I trust everyone is going to enjoy this weekend. It's this long weekend, and we appreciate you 100% here at New Thought Media Network. So continue to support us, continue to come to these Saturday morning conversations, invite your friends, go back and find them on the website and look at them again and study and work, because we are here on a divine mission with a divine purpose, and no one can do what you do. So I want to thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace and blessings. And so it is. Amen.